so I can finally recommend the Galaxy Watch series. However, there are some caveats. We're going to get into that near the end of this video. But first, let me explain why I think this is an amazing Wear OS watch and why it has become my daily driver for the past 30 days. Before we begin, I want to give you a disclaimer that this is not an influencer review, meaning this is not sponsored. I did not receive this for free. I purchased it with my own money. So this is my full honest review, unbiased. Let's get right into it. So you might notice that I have the smallest and lightest version of the Galaxy Watch 6 series. This is the 40mm version. And why did I get such a small device, especially since I'm pretty big, 6'3", and I weigh 200 pounds? Well, I do have pretty small wrist in comparison to other people. However, I always want the smallest gadget on my wrist. I really don't like something that's heavy, clunky, big, kind of like the Garmin Phoenix series and stuff like that, because I want to wear this 24/7 or as much as I possibly can, and especially during sleep, because for me, sleep is a very touchy subject. I have sleep apnea, and I'm going to get into the blood oxygen saturation stuff a little bit later in this video. So anyways, I need the lightest watch, and I can't believe this weighs almost as much as the Fitbit Charge 5, which is a very dumb fitness tracker. It doesn't do much. It's a very basic fitness tracker. This Galaxy Watch 6 is the full out Wear OS 4.0, has all the smart features, albeit it doesn't have the longest battery life. And I can't believe it only weighs about 28 grams, and it's super small. In fact, comparing this to the Pixel Watch or any other competitor like its predecessor, this watch has a relatively big screen at 1.3 inches. And what's crazy about the Pixel Watch, for example, is that it's 1.2 inches, it's thicker in every dimension, it's heavier, and it has a smaller display at 1.2 inches. So Samsung has done an amazing job at fitting a larger screen in a smaller body, which is very lightweight. So as you can see, this bright AMOLED screen has no difficulty in these studio lights right here and in the sun. As you can see, this screen has amazing pixel density. It is very rich because it has an AMOLED display, and I love the fact that it has an always-on display. This means that I can look at it, I can look at the watch at many different angles. I don't have to do that annoying wrist gesture just to see the time. This is the most important function of any watch, which is the ability to tell the time. So I cannot compromise on that feature. Unfortunately, that's going to affect battery life, but we'll get into the battery life a little bit later. Now, I do have one big annoyance with this screen, and it's the auto brightness algorithm. So I go into the auto brightness, I can long press it. So they call it adaptive brightness. The main issue with adaptive brightness is that it's just simply too bright indoors. Obviously, it works very well outdoors, but it really does sap my battery, and I don't need such a bright screen when I'm indoors. So in order to fix that, I have to do this clunky setup where I disable it, then I go into my brightness, and I just put it just right about here, for example. That's the second lowest setting for the brightness level. And from your perspective, it may seem a little bit too dim. However, just do note that I do have these strong, powerful studio lights that are on right now. So this is not a typical indoor scene. Now, this little hack solved 99% of the problems I have indoors. I no longer have a super bright display when I'm indoors. It's not jarring, especially when I go to sleep. And by the way, when you go to sleep, it automatically turns off. And then if you want, you can also have it engage into sleep mode, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Basically, that means that you don't have a bright LED display when you go to sleep. So it's very convenient and it's very smart. However, if I'm going outside, let's say I'm going to go for a bike ride and I want to use Google Maps, which with the directions, the turn-by-turn directions, which is quite good, I do have to enable adaptive displays. I just wish the adaptive brightness would be more similar to my Samsung S23, which I love, by the way. And I could set the level and it would respect that level. It wouldn't go higher. But for some reason, this implementation on the watch is not as advanced as the one on the phone. So overall, the experience is a little bit clunky, and I wish that Samsung could fix this with a firmware update. Now, thankfully, I'm indoors 99% of the time on the computer, so I don't go out very often. So this isn't a big deal breaker for me, obviously. So let's talk about the OS, the operating system and the software, the UI, navigation, and all that stuff. Now, one thing I really like about the TicWatch Pro 5 is that it uses a standard Wear OS 3.0 kind of skin. So when you navigate the screens, it just feels a lot better. I really don't like the implementation of Galaxy Watch on Wear OS 4.0. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very thankful that Samsung from the Galaxy Watch 4 switched from Tizen to Wear OS 4.0, but I just don't like the fact that I have to swipe to the right and to the left to see things like my tiles or notifications. I find it rather clunky. So here's an example of notifications. So if I swipe, and these are grouped now. I have to tap this little button over here, there's two, and then I can see multiple. I just don't like that. I think the implementation on TicWatch Pro 5 is just way better. Like, it's so clunky. I have to do that. Maybe I just have to get used to the operating system, or maybe I should have just got the classic version with the mechanical bezel, and I would really like this interface more. And this clunky navigation goes into one of the biggest decisions you have to make when choosing this watch. Should you get the classic or should you get the more sporty version? Now, as I mentioned before, I wanted the smallest footprint on my wrist. However, I do really miss the mechanical digital bezel. I find that when I use the digital bezel, it's very annoying. And sometimes when I want to tap near the corner, let's say I want to tap around here, well, that time it worked, but sometimes it would register the bezel. Now, one good hack to avoid the annoyance when you use the software bezel on the side is to disable the haptic feedback. I find the haptic feedback is extremely annoying and it doesn't help you at all. So once I disable that, it was a lot more helpful. Now you can disable the touch bezel, but I recommend disabling the vibration lock. It's just very, very annoying. Now, me not getting the classic version was nothing to do with price or anything like that. It all had to deal with the enormous weight. It was a lot more heavier and I was very unsatisfied with that. And I kind of wish there was a super light version that had a rotating bezel. It's really unfortunate, but this is something that you really need to take into account. I don't think you would typically notice the weight, but I did want to experiment and get a super lightweight watch. But do consider maybe getting the classic version because you're gonna get that amazing tactile feedback. When you want to see things like notifications, it isn't as clunky as using your touch interface. Like I said before, I really missed the crown on the TicWatch Pro 5. That was really well implemented, and I love the fact that even if you didn't use the crown, just swiping down for notifications felt a lot more intuitive. All right, so let's talk about battery life. This is a very important topic. Now, I'm gonna say right off the bat, I'm getting anywhere from 30 to 40 hours of battery life. Now, let me tell you my settings. I have always on display enabled. I have it set to the second lowest brightness setting. I have the wake gesture enabled so it wakes up the screen. I have all day stress and heart rate monitoring, which actually didn't add a big impact to my battery when I turned it off or turned it on. I have sleep tracking enabled with SPO2. One tip to save on battery is to disable the Google hotkey word. I find that it interferes with my Google Home Assistants, and I don't find it very useful as much as long pressing the top button or binding it to a cool gesture, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Now let me explain how I use my watch day to day. This isn't a device I use for running, for example. I'm not hammering the battery with GPS tracking. I'm not running with it. I don't run at all. I don't even take this watch to the gym when I do weight training because I find that their weight training app isn't very good. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. That isn't a deal breaker, by the way, as well. The main reason why I use this watch is to avoid using my phone at all costs. I find using my phone, it becomes very easy to open up YouTube or Instagram or Facebook and start doom scrolling. So what this watch has enabled me to do is simply keep my phone away, and I can always get at a glance information. So I can get things like the weather, I can get important notifications, I can triage, I can take phone calls, and etc. etc. So this watch has become immensely valuable for me for my day-to-day life. But that's my behavior. So I'm not a crazy smartwatch person. Like I said, I don't hammer it all day. I'm not doing all kinds of crazy things with it. I'm just, checking it every once in a while. But I do consider myself a power user. So with all that said and done, I'm getting anywhere from 30 to 40 hours of battery life, which I think is totally acceptable. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was coming from the TicWatch Pro 5 and the TicWatch Pro 3, which are amazing watches, but also had amazing 3-day battery life. And you can go crazy. You can turn on all the sensors and everything, load Messenger and like all these phone apps, sideload them and stuff. And the battery was just amazing. This is literally double. They're about 630 milliamps, whereas this one is only 300 milliamps, which is still impressive for such a lightweight watch. But I thought I would be more annoyed by the shorter battery life. But honestly, the way I use my watch, every time I go to the gym or I go skateboarding, I don't wear my watch because it gets too sticky and kind of annoying. And if I go for a shower, I just plop it on the charger. And one of the key things that you want to do is keep your charger readily available. So what I recommend is investing in one of these charging stands. These are a game changer. They make charging your Galaxy Watch 6 so easy and so seamless. You go to the shower, you just plop it on. Maybe you want to go for a quick workout and you don't want to wear your watch, just plop it on. It is so convenient and definitely worth a measly $10. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check them out. So when it comes to charging the device, that's another thing I was a little bit disappointed with. When you charge this device, it does take quite a long time. I like the fact that it's magnetic and it's very easy to plop it in, but I don't like the fact that it takes almost 1 hour and 30 minutes to fully charge it. Whereas with the TicWatch Pro 5, I find that it was a little bit faster. So I do have to wait maybe 1 to 2 hours out of the 24-hour period on a daily basis where I charge it. This is something that I'm already used to, that charging it, and I expect maybe 1 to 2 hours a day. I'm not going to be wearing the watch, which is unfortunate. But hey, like I said before, sometimes I just don't use the watch for those 2 hours when I'm skateboarding or going weightlifting. Now, another pro tip when it comes to accessories, if you're going to buy a secondary charger, I recommend getting the official Samsung charger. I bought this on Best Buy refurbished, and it was pretty inexpensive when compared to buying the cheaper ones. You'll notice that it has USB-C, which means that it's fast power charging. And in terms of the charging brick, you're going to need at least 15 watts. Now, this official Samsung charger charges at 10 watts, but obviously you lose some of that charging capacity, the input of 15 watts to heat and stuff like that. So you'll need at least 15 watts. This one right here, I did a full review on it. It's the VoltMe 30-watt charger. I will leave a link in the description to it. It's definitely recommended if you want to get the faster charging. And for me personally, I need to be able to charge my watch as fast as possible because I really like it. I like wearing it all the time, and waiting more than 2 hours is unacceptable, like those cheaper USB-A chargers out there. And also, I just don't want to mess around with the heat. This watch, along with the Galaxy Watch 4 and 5 and 6, doesn't use the Qi wireless charging standard, so you can't use any wireless Qi charger. You have to use a WPC compatible charger. Now, one huge benefit over the TicWatch Pro 5 is that if you're a Samsung Galaxy phone user, you're going to have a lot of benefits with a Samsung Galaxy Watch. And this is something that really I didn't know about until recently. Obviously, wireless charging is one added benefit. However, you'll need to remove the case of your phone in order to do that, because anything with it, anything that gets in the way will affect the charging capability. Now, plopping it on is very convenient. Let's say you're on vacation and you want to be able to charge your device, your phone, and maybe you don't want to bring your watch charger with you, or maybe you lost it, whatever. This comes in very handy. However, it does consume a lot of battery percentage. I actually ran a full test and it did take a long time. It took about more than 2 hours to charge. I'll put the exact time it took to charge this device along with how much battery it took away from my phone. Now, this is a 300 milliamp battery. It's not going to take exactly that. It might take a little bit more because wireless charging isn't fully efficient and you're going to lose some power to heat. So overall, coming from the TicWatch Pro 5, I thought I would be really disappointed with the battery life, but I find it more than tolerable. Having 30 to 40 hours of battery life with all the bells and whistles enabled mostly, and being a casual user like myself and keeping the brightness setting to indoor environments, I find that with this watch, I'm never out of juice, and it does fantastically for sleep tracking as well. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite subjects about watches, and that's wristbands. I love the fact that Samsung isn't using a proprietary band, although it has that new quick release mechanism, which I do not like. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I like the fact that this is a standard vanilla 20mm band, so you don't have to go out and buy their overly priced bands. Now, are these bands worth it? Well, some of them are. I think they're really, really good. Now, I like all these bands. I think they're fantastic, but the one that I've been seem to be using the most and have become most accustomed to is this black fabric band. And I have to say, it is extremely comfortable to wear. It is very soft. It has a really cool design. It's kind of reflective. And I love the fact that it has infinite adjustability, meaning that you're not restricted, kind of like with the Extreme Sport band where you only had certain settings to set it. These two fabric bands have been a game changer. I do want to make one note about the white fabric band. It is a small medium size, and this is the more larger. This is the medium to large. I find that this one is even smaller, lighter, and thinner. So if you want extreme comfort, maybe go for this one. Although this one ended up being too small for my wrist for day-to-day use, because every time I had to take it off, I had to disconnect it. Whereas with the regular fabric band, the larger one, it was very easy to put it on, put it off. Now, I want to talk about the Extreme Sport band. Why did I get this one? Well, it has these little air holes over here. I figured that these holes here allow for more breathability, so that when I'm working out with this watch, it would be, more comfortable to wear than, let's say, this fabric band. Well, what ended up happening was that my first one seemed to be very defective, and I've seen this on Reddit, where the connecting piece would just randomly pop out. And that was very, very jarring and very scary. Imagine having this new watch on your wrist and then you're walking down the street and it just pops out and falls on concrete. That would be awful, and obviously Samsung aren't going to honor the warranty from that. And it was so weird. I would just be sitting on my computer and thankfully nothing bad happened to my watch, and 3 times within the span of 1 hour it would just pop out. So I was just editing another video and the Galaxy Watch for the 4th time just randomly disconnected, and you note that it is the top handle, the top strap that actually disconnected, not the bottom strap. And I tried to install it in many different ways, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. I really want to use this nice silicone band. Apparently this is using an extremely nice, soft, high quality silicone, and this is something that is much better than what you would typically see on those cheap Amazon knockoff brands. Like I said before, this is a standard 20mm wrist strap size, so that you can just go on Amazon and buy whatever you want, which is very nice because you can customize it and you're not stuck to this brand. But I really wanted to use this, so I went to customer support and I had to go through a lengthy chat process, and thankfully they were able to send this replacement. But they didn't send me the gray one, they sent me the gray black one. They sent me this green one, which I'm kind of liking it. It kind of looks nice. It looks very army kind of like color. Yeah, it's a really nice band. But what did I ended up doing? Well, I just ended up wearing this black fabric band. I love it. It's so comfortable. I love the fact that you can, let me just put it on. And here's what I mean by it being large enough. So I can keep it like this all the time, connected. Oh God, imagine you had to do this all the time. Okay, so there it's locked in. So now I can freely take it on, take it off as I wish, and see this infinite possibility. So I can make it super tight. I can make it just right for my wrist, especially when I want to go to sleep. Put it on like that. It is so comfortable. It literally melts into my skin. I cannot feel it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, am I even wearing my watch? Sometimes I just forget. Now I have one question for you. I think it said on the website that this is reflective. I think it is. In certain angles where I position it, I do see it reflective. But let me know in the comment section down below if this is kind of like a safety feature, if you can go running at night and then then a car's headlight kind of reflects it and then you can see better. I don't know. I'm trying to find out if that actually works or not. Now, the downside with fabric bands is that it attracts more sweat and dirt and it's harder to clean. Whereas with silicone bands, you can just wipe it down with soap and water. You can wash these and stuff like that. They're a lot more durable. So that's one huge downside. So maybe, who knows, one day, maybe this will have so much bacteria and dirt and germs and just traditional washing is too difficult that, you know, you can't wash it. So this quick release button, honestly, thank God it's not proprietary, but it's not very good. I find it very cumbersome to have to change it in and out. It's not as seamless as the Apple Watch or the Fitbit bands. They don't just snap on, but obviously that's a big trade-off for having a more generic type of wrist strap, the 20mm standard strap, so you can use any type of custom wrist strap out there. Now, I want to talk about a subject that's very important when you get a new watch. Now, with this silicone band, unfortunately, I just became too used to wearing the fabric band, and I couldn't put up with this. I wanted to use it. I went to a full gym workout with it. It stayed on fine, so it seemed like my previous extreme sport band was indeed defective. Just be careful of how you put this in. Make sure it's locked into place. I did have it pop out once, but I think that was just my user error. Personally, for myself, it takes a long time, maybe about a week of constant wearing this watch through pain and agony of getting used to the actual watch. Every time I get a new strap and I just adjust it so slightly, like for example, I swap out from the fabric band to this one, I find that my body doesn't react very well to that situation. Basically, my brain is always noticing the watch all the time and it's very distracting and very annoying. So I imagine if I committed to wearing this extreme sport band for at least a week, my body would probably adapt to it just as fast as it took to adapt to this wrist strap over here, the fabric band. In fact, this fabric band was extremely annoying to wear for the first 7 days. It was just so hard to wear. I constantly noticed it. I was like, oh my God, I can't wear this watch and blah, blah, blah. But after 7 days, you just get used to it. So as much as I wanted to wear the extreme sport band, I didn't want to go through that 7-day process again. So I'm just going to wear this for now. One thing I like about the TicWatch Pro 3 was that this was all plastic, so it didn't get as sticky and gucky as it did for the TicWatch Pro 5 or even this Galaxy Watch 6. And this Galaxy Watch 6, the sensor is a little bit more like metallic. It's hard to explain, but it does get more stickier on the skin. So, but I ended up getting used to it. Like I said before, I was also used to this, and it just goes to show it doesn't matter how big the watch is. I think your body will adapt to it over time, and maybe even you have like those the largest 47mm classic Watch 6. Maybe I would have got used to it, and maybe I should have got the larger version. Who knows? I forgot to mention that the rear sensor can sometimes attract skin gunk, and it's a little bit annoying, but this is something very pervasive amongst all fitness trackers, and you just have to remember to use a toothpick to clean it every once in a while. Interestingly, this is not an issue that I had on my TicWatch Pro 3, which had a more basic sensor made of plastic. Unfortunately, the new TicWatch Pro 5 and many new fitness trackers like Garmin series have this type of issue. So in conclusion, I have to say all these bands are very comfortable to wear. Be careful about this. They might pop out, maybe get a warranty if it does happen to you. And let me know in the comment section down below if you end up having any issues with the Extreme Sport Band or any of the other silicone bands. These ones never had the issues, the fabric ones. And I like this one so much. I'm so glad I was able to buy this off Facebook Marketplace from a random person who drove all the way down. And I was able to buy it for about 25 USD. So I was very, very thankful to get this. Since I bought the smaller version of the watch, Samsung would only provide the smaller version, more pink, white, feminine, smaller version of this wrist strap. Even though I still like it, I don't mind the color at all. It's too small and it's very hard to take it on and take it off because I have to disconnect it. All right, so let's talk about the NFC chip that's inbuilt here, which allows you to use Samsung Wallet to pay for things. Maybe you want to go for a jog and you don't want to carry your clunky phone and your clunky wallet and all your credit cards. Maybe if you have your hands full of groceries and you want to be able to pay, it's a very useful, neat feature. Now, one of my big things I didn't like about the TicWatch Pro 3 was that the NFC field communication was rather weak, and I had to put the watch very close to the terminal, and that's kind of dirty and clunky and just not a cool experience. I'm happy to report that the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 NFC field is quite strong. I didn't have to put it very close. The terminal immediately reacted to the NFC field, and I was able to pay quite seamlessly, so that is very good. Every time you put on your watch, you need to enter the PIN code twice, one for the OS and the second for Samsung Pay itself. Google Wallet only requires the first PIN code for the OS. This is super annoying because every time I put on my watch, I have to enter the PIN code twice. But at least it's not as bad as Garmin, where every time you want to summon your credit card, you have to enter a PIN code. And that is very annoying if you want to pay really quickly in front of a cashier. I really wish these damned manufacturers would give the consumer the choice on how they wish to use their credit card. What's weird is that you never have to enter a PIN code for your smartphone nor a physical credit card. So why the hell are they imposing this stupid security measure on my personal smartwatch? I'll never know. I also don't like the fact that I can't bind the bottom button long press to Google Wallet. I much rather Google Wallet. I don't like how Samsung is always trying to force these things like Bixby and stuff down our throat. Now I'm gonna talk about Google Assistant, but thank goodness we can use Google Assistant and have it bind to long press, so don't worry about that. Speaking of shortcuts, I wish there were more. For the top button, I bind it double press to open a third-party flashlight. For some strange reason, I can't bind that shortcut to the official Samsung flashlight app. All right, so let's talk about sleep. Now, this is a very important topic for me because I have sleep apnea, and the fact that this has SpO2 tracking, so blood oxygen saturation tracking, is a huge game changer. So with the SpO2 data, I can see how well my CPAP therapy is doing. And by the way, for those who don't know, a CPAP machine or CPAP therapy is when you put a mask and it pumps continuous pressure into your airway so that it opens up your throat so that you breathe continuously and don't snore. So when the watch detects that you've fallen asleep, it enters this thing called sleep mode. So this transforms the green bright heart rate light to infrared, meaning you don't have this big flashing light under your wrist, and it also temporarily disables the always on display, which is very convenient, and kudos to Samsung for making this so seamless for most of the part. Sometimes when I wake up, it doesn't seamlessly turn off the sleep mode, so I have to manually turn on the watch and turn off sleep mode, which is a little bit of an inconvenience, but still very appreciated that they have this feature. Now, the Quantified Scientist, which is a really big YouTube channel, has done a lot of tests with how accurate the sleep stages are, like the REM, deep sleep, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, all the Galaxy Watch series are not very accurate when it comes to getting these specific sleep stages correct. Now, for me, I don't really care about that as much because that data isn't very helpful. I do seem to get a lot less deep sleep than compared to other competitors. I do want to live in bliss and hope that some of that data is somewhat relevant. For example, how much light sleep versus deep sleep and versus REM sleep I had. But one thing I do find quite accurate, and I have my own subjective empirical evidence, is the start and stop time. And I love the fact that it shows the actual time in bed. So you can see on the screen time in bed, you can see the time that I started and ended, and then there's my nap over here from 2:12 p.m. to 3:49 p.m. Oops, I should have been working during that time. Anyways, I love the fact that it has a nap tracking. That to me is a huge feature. It's so important to be able to monitor your sleeping habits. Here's another example. Time in bed starts at 3:50 and it ends at 9:54, and you can see that it has 6 hours and 4 minutes, but my actual sleep time was 5 hours and 53 minutes. That is so very, very helpful, and I love the fact that they include this information. Quick update, unfortunately, nap tracking isn't as accurate as I had imagined. I'd say it detects about 50% or half of my naps, which is still better than no official nap tracking. You can see your overall insights and metrics. You can get a 30-day look into it. I don't know, this information is quite detailed. It's quite amazing. So I have to say they've done a great job with the software. Now, it isn't perfect. I want to talk about their lack of insights, and I would love more data, better software. But these insights and charts that are already available are quite useful and a good start. So here's my blood oxygen saturation. You can see I was wearing my CPAP therapy around here, and it was well over 90%. And then near here, when I get into REM sleep, it starts to drop a bit, and you can see that this is where I get more apneas, I get more snoring, and I can cross-reference this data with my CPAP machine and my Snore data. Now, unlike all the other charts, like the heart rate chart, I hate that Samsung made the blood oxygen chart a static image. You can't seek or scroll along the x-axis to review a specific value for a given time. This makes the data less accessible and hard to use as a comparison to other devices like my Snore data and my CPAP machine. Now let's talk about snoring. Now I enabled this feature and it's really bad basically. The snoring does not work very well at all. It does not detect any snoring, and I definitely snore. I have these things called catheterina, which is a different type of snoring where I do a very long exhale. I go, it's a very high-pitched squealing noise. I'm gonna play a sample in a second, but it's a really unfortunate type of circumstances. Anyways, what's really weird is that they say, get premium snoring information from Sleep Cycle. So I click on it. I'm like, what is this thing? And they just point to a third-party app. So I don't know if they have some kind of deal with them. Now this app, Sleep Cycle, is really dang good. I actually have it, and I purchased the annual subscription. Let's go to it right now. Now the AI algorithms in this app are absolutely amazing. It's able to determine if you have a snoring, inhaling, exhaling, and all that stuff with a lot of accuracy. I'm just extremely impressed with this app. It just uses your microphone. It's non-invasive. And what's best of all is that if you were just to use only this app, you would have to remember every night when you go to sleep to start tracking. And I hate that. You know, there's some other apps out there that require you to do all these things before you go to sleep. Honestly, I just want to pass out in my bed. So what you can do is install their app. This is the Sleep Cycle app, and it's a very basic app. It does nothing special. It has no alarm or anything. It's just a remote to the phone app. And from there, you can hit play and you can start sleep tracking. Now I'm going to stop that. Now what's really cool about this is that it detects your activity, and it'll pretty accurately detect when you start sleep tracking. So what ends up happening is I get two layers of information. I get the Samsung Galaxy Watch, which has SpO2 and my sleep stages and my start and stop time. And this has my Snore data. And it is extremely extremely good. I love the interface. Everything is so good. The statistics are very insightful and very interesting. For example, if I go here and you can scroll through all the Snore data, you can hit play. Now this video is not sponsored or anything. Oh yeah, talking. So there it detected exhale, coughing, that's snoring. It's like a Katharina event. The algorithms are so good. Even if you have background noise like my CPAP machine, or like you have bugs chirping outside and stuff like that, it's able to filter that out and just extract the snoring. It's amazing. So $40 a year, Canadian bucks, I think it's definitely worth it. But back to Samsung, like why the heck are you advertising this snoring feature? It doesn't work at all. It's complete garbage. And then you just link me to a third-party app. Like what is going on there? Like if you know in the comment section if they have some kind of deal, let me know. So let's talk about the health data you get in their Samsung Health app. Now you can access things like trends overall. So if you hit this graph over here, so I can switch to my resting heart rate and then I can see these overall trends. And what I like about Samsung so far is that they don't charge a subscription fee like Fitbit to see like overall trends. Now the information here is quite good. I think it's overall like not bad. Like if I go to stress, I can see interesting stuff like that, but it's kind of hard to see what the stress is. Like I wish I could zoom in a little bit there. But yeah, again, you're getting overall trends over here, which is really nice. So the body composition sensor is a very important measurement for me personally, and is something very unique to the Galaxy Watch series. So rather than just naively tracking your weight on a scale, you can actually detect your body fat percentage, which is a way more important metric to track, especially if you're trying to build muscle and don't want to conflate results of muscle gains with getting fatter. Two other really advanced features are the blood pressure and ECG monitoring. Personally, I don't find either of those particularly useful. First of all, the blood pressure measurement requires calibration with a real device. I find it rather annoying that I have to go out and buy a blood pressure monitor, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the sensor on my watch, or having to visit a public drug mart, which isn't very convenient or sanitary. Now, regarding the ECG monitor, I took a reading of my sinus rhythm and it said I had no issues. Again, I don't find this stat particularly helpful, but perhaps there's a segment of users who'd find the blood pressure monitor or the ECG immensely valuable. Overall, the data visualizations from the Samsung Health app, combined with the watch's array of advanced health sensors, provide a comprehensive and insightful perspective on your well-being. Now, I do think that they can improve upon it and provide more insights. I wish they had things like body energy, which is something that Fitbit and Garmin do, where they use all the insight information and combine it and then provide you with a metric to see how much energy you have to start your day. Now, obviously, there's a huge caveat with this is that I don't wear it all the time to all my sports. So it would be really nice if Samsung made a smaller form factor, like an even smaller form factor, like a Fitbit Charge series, where I can wear it to the gym or wear it skateboarding, and then I could combine the data into this app. Now, speaking of combining data, one thing that's really cool is that you can sync all this information to other apps, most notably Google Fit. It's this thing called Health Connect. So you can send all the information to Google Fit so that you're not locked in, you don't have this vendor lock-in program. The TicWatch Pro 5 has this as well, and I think more smartwatches are getting more open. And I love the fact that our data that we generate isn't, tied to one platform. So if you switch watch, maybe you switch to Apple Watch, at least you have some historical data. Now there's some annoyances with this. They have their own kind of health sharing platform, which is Samsung Health Platform or whatever like that. That was very confusing. I just ignore that. I didn't want to install it. I don't mind using Google Fit and syncing that data to Google Fit. But then with the Sleep Cycle app, I was getting doubly reported sleep tracking nights, which in the UI wasn't too bad because I could tell which one was which, because the Sleep Cycle did not have sleep stage tracking, so I could obviously identify. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't really need this feature. I'm pretty happy with the Samsung Galaxy Watch platform, but I do wish that they could add more insights and more data. Now let's talk about exercise. Now, like I said before, many times before, I do not wear this watch when I go skateboarding or when I go weightlifting. Now, would I love to wear this watch to get my full spectrum of health data? Yes, it would be amazing. But those 2 hours when I'm doing really intense sports activities, this watch is in the dock being charged, and when I come home, I have a fully charged watch, so I have very, very little downtime. In fact, this was the behavior I had from my previous smartwatches. I never really wanted to wear a clunky watch when I'm doing like extreme sports like skateboarding or going in the shower or weightlifting. Now, weightlifting is a very interesting thing because in the past, Google has done an amazing job at being able to detect what kind of exercise you're doing. So if you're doing a chest press, shoulder press, pull up and all that stuff, it was amazing. It was using all the gyro data, accelerometer data, and detecting what kind of motion it was, and it was extremely accurate. And it was very good. Another competitor that does this very well is also Garmin. Fitbit does a terrible job at this, and I don't like the fact that Google Fit has joined the ranks of becoming really dumb. So you don't have that feature anymore. It's really sad it was in Wear OS 2.0, RIP gym rep tracking. And the reason why I like this feature so much is because it helped me focus in the gym. I was able to, stay motivated, stay fixated on these rep tracking stuff, and most importantly, have the rest timer. So I know I don't dilly-dally too much between my sets. And Samsung has their own implementation of this. If I swipe, kind of weird, I have to go from a tile. The first major issue with Samsung's weight training app all starts when it tries to detect your start position. For exercises like bench press, it does a decent job. But for some other exercise like pull-ups, it really does struggle to determine that you are in the starting position. If it can't detect that you're in the starting position, rep tracking is never initiated. You can't even manually start tracking. It relies on the accelerometer gyro data, which is really annoying. Now, thankfully, you can manually end your set, thank goodness. For certain weight training exercises, there are two modes. You have the target mode or manual mode. In target mode, it will count your reps, and once you reach the rep target, it will automatically end the set and start your rest timer. In manual mode, the mode that I much prefer given its flexibility, you can double tap the button to end the set, so long as that button isn't binding to recent apps. I know, it's kind of weird. Now, the second major issue is that there are very few strength training exercises. You get the basics like bicep curls, chest press, but lack more advanced things like upper dumbbell chest fly, which was not an issue with Garmin or Wear OS 2.0's strength training apps. Now, Samsung does give you the flexibility to create your own custom exercise and order your exercises on the watch so that it becomes easy to end and start a new workout, which is a little bit unintuitive, but whatever, I digress. Now, the issue with these custom exercises is that they only track duration and your heart rate, so they're pretty pointless, they're pretty dumb. You can't build a custom exercise that will automatically count reps, sets, and rest times between your sets. Overall, this implementation by Samsung in terms of weightlifting, your rest timer and all that stuff, the rep tracking is not very good at all. It's very, very unfortunate. And I'm a developer. I would love to build my own app, but I just don't have time. And I just don't see the need in having to do this. I'd rather just use my own personal app. So I built this little very basic app where I can just log, okay, I did chest and biceps. I'm going to create a calendar event. It does a quick calendar event. By the way, here's all my workouts over here. I map it to a specific calendar ID. For example, on this here, I did shoulders at this location. Here you can switch between different locations. And what it does is just creates a shortcut to make an all-day event on my calendar to a specific calendar. It just makes it entering my overall workouts faster. And I can visually see on this map or on my computer what I've done in the past, and I can see if I'm like slacking off and not doing a lot. So this has become my go-to way of tracking my reps, but it doesn't have that detailed information. And I would love to build an app that does that. So let me know in the comment section down below if you would be interested if I built that app where it integrates with Google Calendar, lets you customize the types of workout, uses AI or just a basic algorithm to detect your workouts. Maybe you can pre-program it and stuff like that. So I'm getting really off topic, but yeah, Samsung's implementation of weightlifting is not very good at all. You can't customize it. Sometimes it's not accurate. And I really wish they would bring back the Wear OS 2.0 version. Also, the phone call quality is absolutely amazing on the watch. I can take a full phone call. It is very clear on both sides. I asked multiple people. They were able to hear me very well. I had the watch pretty far away from me, like on my wrist, and I was just speaking normally. And this speakerphone here is actually quite good for a watch. It's obviously not going to sound as good as your speakerphone on your phone, but it's amazing to take phone calls and not have to use your phone. So let's talk about always on display watch faces. We've come a long way since the first introduction of the always on display on Wear OS. Thanks to the efficiency gains in low-powered coprocessors, we can have a lot of up-to-date information, at-a-glance information, in fact, on our always-on displays. I remember when always-on displays had only just the time. Now, having an always-on display is vital for that glanceability aspect, which I've been accustomed to very dearly. And thankfully, the 30 to 40 hour battery life, as I mentioned earlier, makes always-on display a viable option with these wonderful watch faces. So the complications on this watch are amazing. So check this out. I have the battery over here. I can tap into it. I can go into like my battery insights right away and stuff like that. I have at the bottom here my next calendar event, which is very important. If you work in a corporate job, you have to always be on time for these Zoom meetings and stuff like that. This is immensely helpful. I can click onto it and then I can see all my schedules and stuff like that. I have at a glance weather, and the little icon tells me if it's like cloudy, if it's raining or not. So that's one dimension of data. But then obviously you have the Celsius or Fahrenheit if you're in America, and I can click on it. And the actual weather app is very, very intuitive. I like it. I like that it's very dense. Whereas with Google's official weather app, it's very good because it gives you upfront like UV information and it's a little bit nicer, but look how big this is. And I have to scroll so much and it's very hard to see at a glance. Like I much prefer Samsung's implementation, even though they're using the same weather.com data, which by the way is wet bias. Wet bias mean that it tries to attract views by showing more precipitation percentage. But yeah, let's see how dense that is. So you can see more at a glance the information. And then you have the date over here and the time. Very nice contrast. So the watch face is called Info Brick. Recommend checking that out. And if I could swipe all the way to the complications, I have 5 complications. There's so many customizations. I don't want to go through all of them. Camera controller, calculator, date event, blah, 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 all that stuff. It is absolutely amazing. So at a glance information on your wrist with the amazing always on display, you have a high contrast time so that even if the screen is very dim, you can still see it in most situations, especially when indoors. It's just such a great experience. Speaking of the Galaxy Watch app, I have to say, I love the fact that it is so well integrated with Galaxy phones. And this is one of the main reasons why you may want to pick up the Galaxy Watch 6 over all the other competitors, is that if you have already a Galaxy phone. Now, the actual app is amazing itself, because every setting that is on the actual Galaxy Watch 6, you don't have to fiddle with it and like go into here and tap all the stuff. It is all mapped onto the phone. So you can go into the phone, you can do things like watch settings, customize your notifications and stuff like that. And it just makes setting up your device so much easier. I love the fact that it's so seamless. I just love the integration, the tight integration. Another example is, let's say you have a complication with your alarm, your next alarm. Maybe you want to use this as a daily alarm for waking up for work. Well, it integrates with the smartphone. So on the official clock app, if I go into clock, so any alarm that I have here can be synced to my watch. So that's just another example of the tight integration between these two devices. Now there's so many crazy things you can do. Apparently you can connect this to Wi-Fi and then get notifications remotely. So let's say this is in your house and you go to the gym and maybe your gym has Wi-Fi and this is not, and then you don't have the LTE version of this watch. Well, you can get notifications and stuff like that is piggybacking off your phone through a remote connection. All right, so I saved the last two for the best. The main reason why I love this watch so much and I did not return it despite all the shortcomings with me getting used to it on my wrist. By the way, that was a side issue. It took only a week to get used to it. And then I had that whole issue with the wristband popping out for the extreme band. I was like very upset with that. So I wanted to return it, but thank God I kept it, because these two features right here, the first one is what you saw right now. That was the Google Assistant. Now this is a huge killer. Unfortunately, the TicWatch Pro 5 does not have the Google Assistant, and I did create a hack that allows you to side load the Google Assistant Go, which is a phone APK, a light version of Google Assistant. So it does offer some Google Assistant. And by the way, you can use Alexa and stuff like that. But the Google Assistant on the Galaxy Watch 6 is so seamless. It has very tight integration with things like maps and stuff like that, asking when restaurants are open and stuff like that, getting quick information, being able to integrate with all your smart home devices. Let's say I want to turn off all the lights, for example. Now, unfortunately, still to this day, the new Google Assistant for Wear OS 4.0 does not support routines. I think that's really unfortunate, but still I can control all my smart devices. So let's talk about wrist gestures. Now there's one killer wrist gesture that I think is amazing and it's so handy, and it's when you pair it with the Google Assistant. What you do is you have your wake up gesture, and then within 5 seconds, you do this fist and double tap like that, and that will start Google Assistant. And that means that your hands can be dirty. You can have all these groceries, or for example, there's so many situations where I want to use the Google Assistant. Maybe I want it to open the light or something like that, and not having to touch my actual watch and just summon the Google Assistant is absolutely amazing and a killer feature. Now they do have other wrist gestures like answering phone calls and declining phone calls, but I don't use that as very often, because how often do I get a phone call on my wrist? Now there is one gesture that I miss immensely, and that's being able to filter through your notifications. Now I know Samsung designed this OS around the whole mechanical bezel. As I mentioned before, I don't like the digital bezel, but in Wear OS 2.0, I really miss the gesture where I can go like this and then just do like this little gesture like that. I could switch between different notifications, and it was so good because I want to be able to read my notifications without having to touch my watch. And it really sucks that they're not going to bring this to Wear OS 4.0. And I think they can. I think it's a different type of gesture. I don't know. They should just bring it back. And yeah, I know they designed the whole OS navigation system around this bezel, this mechanical bezel. But for those who want the lightest watch and have to use a digital bezel, it's unfortunate that we don't get notification gestures. So for the final reason why I love this watch so much and why I didn't return it is for this feature. Now, as a content creator, I think this is a killer feature, quote unquote content creator, by the way. I scroll up, I go into the camera controller. Well, what is that? Well, that's just a remote viewfinder, and I use this extensively. Right now, I have a remote viewfinder for my Sony cameras. I have 2 of them, in fact. And as a solo content creator, by the way, check it out. I need to be be able to capture serendipitous B-roll anytime I'm out and about. And I love the fact that I can place my phone in inconspicuous areas, not for spying purposes, but then be able to remotely see and frame myself as a solo content creator and get a well-framed shot. It is so difficult to frame yourself with this phone because if you want to use the main rear sensor, so the sensor right here, the middle one right here, which has the largest sensor at 0.6 inches, which has the best low light performance and all that, you definitely want to use that one, right? You want to use that middle one right here. Well, you can't see yourself, right? You can use a selfie screen, but then you use like a subpar sensor and it doesn't have optical image stabilization. That's another benefit. Maybe you want to do a selfie shot and you want to be walking and talking and you want to maintain your field of view and not crop in with electronic image stabilization. Well, I can use this watch and then frame myself. So I can switch between camera mode. I can go into photo or video. I can start recording. I personally like to use Pro Video because I find it gets the best colors. It doesn't give that crazy HDR look, and I can set to 24 frames per second, for example. I can switch to Pro Video and it'll remember the last setting that I'm in. I think you have to customize that within the actual Samsung app, but it'll map back to your actual watch over here. The watch is just a remote. You can start recording, stop recording, frame yourself, and that is the killer feature for any content creator. Now, if you're just a regular person that just likes to consume content and not create content, this feature isn't going to be as appealing. But I think all the other gambit of features, especially if you're invested in the Galaxy Watch series as a smartphone user, the Galaxy Watch 6 is finally the best Wear OS watch I can recommend to this day. So that's all I want to say about the Galaxy Watch 6. It has become my new main daily driver. I love it so much. It's very comfortable to wear. The wrist straps are amazing. I can go on and talk forever about this, but I need to end this video now. So if you have any questions or comments about this, please let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next video.